Welcome to the Law Be With You podcast show. I'm your host, Azzy. Today we have the amazing and talented Luke Sewell with us again. Hello, Luke Sewell.
Hey, Aaron.
How you been doing?
Yeah, all right, thanks. Sorry, still just getting over your introduction of me being what was it, amazing and talented. Love it.
Hello. Well, the thing is, we only have the best collaborators on the show. And if you hear the episodes that I've done with Omar, you'll hear the intro that I give for him as well. So I think I'm a bit of an evangelist at heart, and and a evangelist slash boxing promoter maybe.
That famous combo, yeah.
Yeah, famous converse. Yeah, I like to promote the when I see talent with you and Omar and Stephen as well, and there a lot of talent. I like to promote it as well. Um, so we've been promising this Wizards of Middle Earth episode for a while, and like I say, it's a bit of a shorter
Yeah.
episode, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And now Destiny is being fulfilled. Come on. So what have you been up to like since the last time we had you on the show, kind of thing? Because I know you do a lot of work on your Instagram. So give us a little, tell the audience, tell the podcast listeners, what you've been up to.
I've been back at work doing my day job,
Yeah.
which is working at a picture framing workshop. So we've been super busy, which has been really nice. So I've been hard at work doing that.
Yeah.
The rest of my time, I have been finishing off a big Lord of the Rings alphabet that I've been lino cutting.
Oh wow.
So you can have a look at that on Instagram. That's all finished now. It's I've done it as a nice big poster.
Nice.
And yeah, and just figuring out what to work on next. Really, I've been doing that since about January or February. So I've got to come up with some new ideas now.
I mean, obviously it's a creative process because you know the way that you creatively like sort of show off the sort of Tolkien's world and the mythology behind the Lord of the Rings and that world is amazing, and obviously it is a big part of Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Like even in terms of the illustrations that you get with the books and things like that. I'm trying to remember the artist that did a lot of the illustrations is Lee.
Alan Lee is one of the most
That's right.
famous ones. Yeah, Alan Lee and
Yeah,
John Howe. Yeah,
yeah,
they're two of my favorites.
yeah. So I mean, it's a sort of you come at it from the artistic point of view, and it really does kind of build up the mythos, and it kind of brings to life this amazing narrative, doesn't it?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I try and most of my illustrations I try and be quite suggestive with, so it's sort of something that can kind of kickstart your imagination without,
Yeah,
they're not too descriptive. I guess
yeah,
they're sort of starting points for you to
yeah.
sort of start thinking about some of the people and places.
Yeah, and I noticed with your work as well, it's very stylized. Like it's like you can recognize that.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the Luke Sewell piece right there. That's Luke Sewell's handiwork right there. I love
Oh,
that. I love that stylized sort of thing where you can see who is the creator of it. I love that.
oh, thanks, man.
So
That's all I
good.
could hope for. So yeah.
There you go. Hopefully now we'll have to do a deal on the podcast where we'll have to give out a code and maybe
Yeah, you can get like 10% off or something.
yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll do that. We'll do that really soon. We'll do that
All
really
right. All
soon.
right.
Okay. So, quick fandom question here. Now, obviously on the show, Luke, and you know me well, Luke, on these things. We're not afraid to get into sort of a murky territory sometimes in terms of fandom issues. And obviously in fandom, that whatever fandom you're looking at, there's always issues going on. Um, However, it's a little bit surprising for me in Lord of the Rings because it's normally Star
It's
Wars where
normally
it's like
Star Wars. Yeah.
it's
Those
normally
toxic fans. Yeah.
it's normally Ryan Johnson or JJ Abrams or Kathleen Kennedy's up
Yeah.
against somebody, and the fandom war goes on in Star Wars, and we've covered that a lot on the Law Be With You podcast show already, and we shall continue to cover that as well. It's
No
still a hot
doubt. No
topic.
doubt.
But yeah, it's these sort of these fandom issues have popped up in Lord of the Rings. Really surprised by that. Now, obviously, there's a new Amazon show, which is obviously I think Amazon have paid a lot of money to get Lord of the Rings on there.
Oh yeah.
From what I heard, they outbid Netflix, and I can't remember the actual amount it was, but it was a lot of money. Um, and a gentleman that is kind of essentially one of the actors playing a role in there, a gentleman I think who's Chinese Canadian, has kind of basically said that there should be Chinese actors or this sort of characters in this new show, and it's kind of kicked off a bit of a debate within fandom as to whether it be different nationalities or people of color in roles that are written in a sort of Tolkienian sort of way, where obviously it's coming from a sort of European history sort of angle. Um, what do you make of this? And is it a, is it a sort of forced diversity that this sort of gentleman is talking about?
I think this is a wider issue that goes beyond just Lord of the Rings in terms of
Yeah,
the idea of sort of colorblind casting and that sort of thing that we don't really have time to get into. I think
yeah,
Lord of the Rings takes place in a fantasy world. It takes place nominally in the ancient history of our world in a mythological way. But
yeah,
the reason Lord of the Rings has such broad appeal, the reason Amazon are willing to pay so much money to just to be able to make a series about it, is that
yeah.
it contains, I guess, themes and truths that have a kind of universality to them, and have
Mm,
managed to transcend different cultures and nationalities. I mean, that's what we spent a lot of time on the podcast chatting about, I guess.
of course.
And I think the strongest link between the created world that Tolkien made and our own is actually the geography, the sort of land it takes place in. The book
Mm.
clearly draws on that sort of area of northwestern Europe as its
Yeah,
setting. But the films famously were filmed entirely in New Zealand, which is about as far as from you can get from Europe, and
of course.
that
Yeah,
seemed to work pretty well. I think in terms of the races and people of Tolkien's work, there is a way I think that you could read uh, something called Orientalism into it, which is something
okay.
sort of cultural theorist called Edward Said writes about. It's this sort of negative perception of a sort of West versus East struggle, with the West being good and everything else being bad. And I think, regrettably, the Peter Jackson films especially really do lean into that in some unhelpful ways, especially aesthetically. Um,
Okay.
I mean, there are no, I don't remember seeing any non-white people of Middle Earth, unless you can count orcs, really, which you can. I can understand why you'd read that pretty negatively, and I think if those
Yeah,
films
I
were
did.
to be made now, you might not get away with it in the same way.
No,
Um,
I think that's so true. I did. I remember like watching the Peter Jackson films at the time, and it did. It was something that was evident. Like, oh, hang on a minute, there's no people of color, and but I understood it. I knew enough about Lord of the Rings to understand why that was the case. I knew that there was a Northern European emphasis from Tolkien himself. I knew about. I'd kind of done a bit of homework on it in terms of whether it be books or you know videos about it and things like that. So I kind of knew that he was talking about Northern Europe a lot, and even like things to do with England and Northern France. And we were
yeah, so we
talking.
were talking a bit about the Amazon TV series
Yeah,
and I guess sort of representation and that sort of thing. I think in terms of if you look into the history of Northern Europe as well, for
mm,
a long periods of time, like it hasn't been populated solely by white people as well, going back
mm,
right to sort of as far as history can reach, to be honest.
yeah.
Like Septimius Severus was he was a Roman emperor who came to Britain, and he was from North Africa. So like
Oh,
there's I think there's loads of really good reasons why you could have Chinese Canadian actors in Middle Earth. I think the problem is if it becomes tokenistic. I think we saw with the Hobbit trilogy,
yeah,
the production company or Peter Jackson or whoever wrote a female character into the Hobbit films because I guess they figured it would test well with focus groups in terms of how that film would be received.
yeah,
And I
yes,
think we
of
can
course.
agree the character was badly written. Their role was really inconsistent with the established stories within the world, and so their inclusion and particularly a romantic subplot that they were involved in was
Yeah,
wildly unpopular.
yeah.
So don't do that. But as far as I'm concerned, there's absolutely no reason why. And one of the elves, or the Edain, or anyone, to be honest, could be played by a non-white actor. Especially when you stretch back to the very start of the Tolkien story, the creation of the Ainur and the Maya and all of that sort of thing. Those are universal characters. They're heavenly beings. They're not connected to any one part of the world. So
of course. Yeah. So I mean, you're so true. Like literally, like if you want to go back to sort of the Valar, like you're saying, all those sort of heavenly beings, then like of course they could manifest themselves. Because obviously, I think
they can take any form they want.
Yeah,
it takes the form of a mountain at one point. So yeah,
it could be black, white, different type of Asian culture. There could be any culture. It doesn't really matter what they could present themselves in different ways. So actually, that's really true. I think the fandom issue really is a kind of case of, I think some fans are reacting to the fact that the culture that we're in probably now is very liberal, and there's this sort of, I guess, talk of that sort of franchises becoming woke, and obviously there's fans have seen it within Star Wars, they've seen it within other genres as well, and I think there's some fans are thinking, oh no, not Lord of the Rings as well. And I think that happens as that, and then there might be an overreaction to like, oh, hang on a minute. So it ends up getting a bit silly where I think everybody's sort of overreacting to a situation. This actor, I don't know the gentleman. He's actually, but he's gave his opinion, and that's fine. And whether he's right or wrong is whatever. But I would agree with you in a sense of, like, we don't want it as a tick box or token exercise where we just put in someone in, and there's not well thought through. It's not written properly. It's not done properly, and then it ends up just being like everyone's like, well, that wasn't great.
Yeah, and I think for Tolkien would say as well, this is a big problem of making it into something that's a drama that's visible, that's a film or on stage or whatever. The whole reason he chooses literature is because he loves the imagination and the fact that you can decide how to imagine those characters within the descriptions and the stories that he's telling. And as soon as you turn that into a TV series or a film, something of that's lost, because some of it is dictated to you. You have to suspend imagination. He didn't like that. So yeah.
Okay.